Welcome again to the second day of the 24th Beta Annual Convention for English Teacher. We are going to start the plenaries, please. It's an honor to present you Mr. Gonzalo Fortun, an English specialist at the U.S. Department of State and English Programs Coordinator at the U.S. Embassy in Bolivia. Mr. Gonzalo has an MA in TESOL from ASU and an MA in Education and Higher Education Teaching Diploma from the CEPI USFX, and he is going to do the presentation with Ms. Jennifer Ventimiglia. She earned a master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages at the American University. Also, she earned a second master's degree in educational leadership. She also served as the English Department Chair and Mentor Teacher, Fulbright Teacher in Prague, Czech Republic, presenting a dozen of conferences, workshops, and panels at the U.S. Embassy and several universities. After this introduction, let's give a big round of applause for them.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're not too full after the great lunch that we had. I'm Jennifer. This is...
Hi, I'm Gonzalo. How are you? It's very nice to see everybody back after lunch. It's always a difficult time, so we're going to try to keep you awake, okay? So we'll just grab your attention for about an hour, and you'll see what you'll see.
So you probably see that Marcela Raffo's name is on the program. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here, so I'm going to do my best and try and fill her shoes. But don't worry, because Gonzalo is here. He's an expert on Relo Andes and all of the programs that the U.S. Embassy in Bolivia offers. So he's going to support me in giving you this information. Also, my name is first just because I'm talking first, but I'm definitely not the expert. So the objective today is really simple. It's just to know what resources are available for English teachers and to learn how to access them. That's it. The agenda is first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Regional English Language Office, or Relo Andes. Then Gonzalo will talk about the programs that are specific to Bolivia. And then we're going to play a game, which is a quiz about the information we're presenting, and there will be an opportunity to earn prizes. So make sure you pay attention. Just to have our contact information, we'll show this again at the end. But if you want to take a photo, the first email for Karina Garcia and Marcela Raffo is for Relo Andes at state.gov, and then Gonzalo's email is down there. So feel free to take a photo. If you don't get your phone out in time, we'll show it again at the end of the presentation, especially for those of you who are just coming in. So what is Relo, or the Regional English Language Offices? As you can see, there's many all around the world. In the Americas, we have the base in Washington, D.C. in the United States. There's one in Mexico, Panama, Brazil, and the one here in Peru is responsible for 7 countries, including Bolivia, also Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So what does Relo Andes do? Basically, it's a consultant for governments, for Ministry of Education, for teacher training programs, for universities. Basically, where there's an interest, Relo Andes is there to help. They also organize and help participate in conferences such as this one. So it's a little bit about what Relo Andes does. But there's a lot more initiatives than that, and some of them will directly affect and maybe interest you. One of them, which is my favorite, is the Access Program. This is a micro-scholarship program for youth between the ages of 13 and 20 years old that have the opportunity to study for at least 2 years in a binational center, intensive English. But on top of learning English, they're also developing leadership skills through community service. And each branch has different opportunities for students to do camps every year or to do extracurricular activities on weekends. There's also alumni outreach where students that have been part of the program come back and give back in certain ways. There's also a couple programs. One is close to my heart. It's called the English Language Fellows. I wore the same shirt as in the photo so you could recognize me. And so basically what this is are people that at least have a master's in TESOL and several years of teaching English come to different countries to support. So for example, I'm in Peru, and I'm working specifically with binational centers to do teacher training, curriculum development. I have 2 colleagues that are also in Peru that are working with the Ministry of Education for adult programs and for pedagogicos. But unfortunately, there's no English fellows here in Bolivia because the visa situation is a little complicated, but you never know, maybe one day. One thing that Bolivia can receive is language specialists, because they're here for a shorter time, so we don't issues. And they're from 2 weeks to 5 months. So think about that in your institutions, whether it's a university or a secondary school or primary school. You can ask for a specialist to come. So send an email to that address I showed you at the beginning. And a specialist can come and do intensive training with teachers or curriculum development for a short period of time, but an intensive period of time.
So, taking up what Jennifer is saying, if any institution would actually be interested in hosting an English language teaching specialist, all you need to do is get in contact with the U.S. Embassy. You saw my email address in the very first slide. You'll see it again in the very last slide. So this is bringing someone, a high caliber professional, to work with your institution. So this is rather simple. All you need to do is get in contact with us at the U.S. Embassy, and we need to start working on a proposal. This proposal needs to have not only an institutional impact, but more as an impact to your community. So if we see that that could actually be effective, then we'll work with you on this proposal, and then like in a couple of months, we have the opportunity to have these fantastic high caliber professionals from the period of time that Jennifer mentioned, anytime between 2 weeks and 5 months.
So there's also the e-teacher program. These are online courses that allow you to connect with a university in the US and study a specific topic. These are kind of invitation only. Unfortunately, there's only 16 slots for those 7 countries that I mentioned. But again, if you're interested, if that sounds like something that you would really like to do, you can send an email and be considered for a recommendation for a scholarship. So it would be free in order to participate in an online course connected with a US university. There's also MOOCs called, they're massive open online courses. And those are available on a website I'm about to show you, where even if you aren't able to participate in them, there's the record of them, the PowerPoints, the videos that you can access on this website. So again, it might be another time to take a photo. It's americanenglish.state.gov. Here you'll see that there's a lot of resources, including access to information about these online learning classes. And if you see in the middle where it says resources, if you just kind of click on that, this menu will come up where you'll see specifically there's this title, the MOOCs, the online courses. And then there's a bunch of different resources that you can download. So today we'll be giving out a few as prizes, but they're all available on this website for download.
Something interesting about the American English at State website is that it can actually be very overwhelming. So we would definitely invite you to click here, get into this site, and start exploring. The only problem is that there is so much that you can get lost. So the idea here is not just like to look for anything, but to be more specific. Like if you want to have some listening exercises, then make sure that you write listening there where it says like search this site, and you start exploring. And like what we always try to do is encourage people to share with colleagues. If you find something that you think it's interesting and it would be of interest for somebody else, share it. And share it with us so that we can actually like spread the word and make everybody, take better advantage of that. This repository contains like zillions of titles, downloadables of all different kinds, and Jennifer will just explain a little more about that now.
Sure. So yeah, as Gonzalo said, you can see by kind of using this middle column, if you're going in for more kind of personal development, you might focus on webinars or the MOOCs. But if you're looking for materials to use with your students, by clicking on Teaching the 4 Skills, there you'll have the specific materials for reading, writing, listening, or speaking. These are just some of the examples of materials for download that are some of the books. Some of you might have received the Forum magazines today, but there's also different texts about culture, about history, literature that you can directly download from this website.
And do you know how much you need to pay to get this? Nothing.
Free.
Something that's very interesting about this site is that everything you find here could be for you and for free. So you can download this material, you can print it out, you can laminate it, you can send it to a printing press, have it like enlarged and have like, large posters that you can use for your classrooms. It's like, this is not copyleft, but it's under the creative.
Copyright. Yeah.
It's a different level of copyright that allows people to freely use all this material.
Yeah, open access.
The only thing that you cannot do is to sell it. But I know that you're not going to do that. So you're just going to download and use it. I'm like your institution do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and just thinking if you use Google Classroom or Edmodo, these are materials you could post online for free. So for your students that have access to computers or even on their cell phones, you can assign homework or just give them extra resources by sharing the soft copy, especially if it's costly sometimes to print the materials, but you can share them virtually as well. Okay, so another resource that's on the website is a free video game, and apparently it's very popular around the world. And can you guess what country is the top player from? Do you think they're from the United States? England? What about Bolivia? Yes. So maybe Gonzalo, can you talk more about that? I just learned that from him.
This is a game that comes in 2 formats. You can get it on a CD or you can play it online. So if you go into the americanenglish.state.gov and you look for trace effects, you will be there seeing a link for the online version of the game. The online version of the game, of course, it's also free, and it allows you to start storing your records. So the record holder now is actually a Bolivian student from Cochabamba. So he's been the record holder for over 2 years now. You're going to be able to see a little more about this, so just pay attention to the screen.
Yeah, there's a short video about 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's just a trailer that you could also use with your students to kind of excite them about it so they get to know what is this video game all about. So here's the video. So that is one resource. Another resource you can find on YouTube, it's called Say What. And as you can see, again, it says there, Say What. There is idioms that are illustrated, and then there's a video that goes with it. So this idiom that we're going to highlight today is hang in there. So you could start off by showing students this image. They talk about what do they think it might mean. And then you could show the video that's on YouTube where there's a very brief explanation. So we're going to watch the video that explains what does the expression hang in there mean.
Oh, whoa. Hey, speaking to you from the ancient Incan site of Kapulyak. That situation I'm in right now has made me think about our word of the week, phrase of the week, and that was to hang in there. Basically, to hang in there is just a really fun, casual way to help someone feel better about a situation they're in. For instance, say it's a Wednesday and you still got 3 more days of work. You could say to someone, don't worry, hang in there. We're almost done. It's almost Friday. Or if someone has a bunch of exams, hang in there. You'll get through it. So again, real fun, easy, casual way of just giving someone support in a situation that's a little difficult. So I'm going to sign off now and see if I can hang in there myself. Oh, what?
Okay, so it's a little cheesy, but you could look at the different idioms that are available. Again, brainstorm with students. What do you think they mean? Show the video. Use it as a listening activity to ask students, okay, what were a few of the examples he mentioned in the video? What was the definition? Have them come up and discuss with their own examples of a time that they had to hang in there. So it's just another tool that's free and available. So I'm going to present the last thing, a couple pages that you might want to bookmark, and we'll actually give you about 5 minutes to do that. So if you want, take a photo now, but then there will be time for you to actually bookmark these in your phone. And there are 3 different Facebook pages that are available. The first one is American English at State. So this will tell you about all the different opportunities in the world. So videos, webinars, scholarships, exchange programs throughout the whole world. The second one, American English for Educators, is specifically for teachers, whereas the first one, there will be information for both students and teachers. American English for Educators are specific teaching materials. And then finally, Relo Andes is the specific page that's just for those 7 countries that I mentioned, Bolivia, Peru, etc. So we're going to give you about 5 minutes because a lot of times we're at conferences and we see all of this information and the slides are going so fast and we didn't get our camera to take the photo in time. So actually take about 5 minutes. I'm going to set the timer and take time to log on to Facebook and to look for American English at State, American English for Educators, Relo Andes. Look for those pages, like them, so that you'll be able to get the updates of all the resources and opportunities that are available. And also, if you're interested, take the time to go on to americanenglish.state.gov, bookmark it, the Say What. If you put Say What Aprendiendo Inglés, that idiom video page that I showed you will come up, but you have to type that in for you to be able to see that page. And then, yes, I feel like there was one more, but nope, that's it. So go ahead, we're gonna set the timer, and I'll walk around down here if you need any help finding the pages, but take about 5 minutes to add those Facebook pages and bookmark the different resources that we shared. Again, just raise your hand if you need any help finding anything, and I will come around.
If you need any help, just raise your hand. We can help you. Yeah.
If some of you are looking for the trace effects, if you go on the website, there's a manual that says Quick Start Guide, but I think it's better to do that on the computer. On your phone, it won't kind of work correctly, but we're just investigating for trace effects. So if you're looking specifically for the video game, when you're on a computer, go on to americanenglish.state.gov, search trace effects, and then you'll download the Quick Start manual, and that will give you all the steps on how to use the video game. That way, in case you forget, it's there, save. Okay. Yeah. So this is the website. I think that it's just not loading because of the internet, but this is it. So let's bookmark it. I don't know why the file is there. Yeah, it's right there on the first bookmark. Sure. Is this book? Okay, so this one. Yeah, there we go. IRC and Lolo. Perfect. And so then the next one would be American English for Educators. Sí. You're welcome. Hi. Oh, welcome. Did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Because it says I have to log on before I download the Unity.
Okay.
But I can.
Try the on the computer and then just email me if it doesn't work. I'll find you the answer. I promise.
Okay. So, most people have already started exploring, and this has a lot to do with how is that we use social media. Like Facebook, believe me, it's more than just looking at pictures of people that you know or you don't know. It's actually like a very interesting source of materials. Like the American English for Educators, it's very active. It has around 20 posts a day, and all of them are very relevant to English teaching. So if you're curious and you become a fan of the page, then you'll start seeing more often on your news feed, and that will make you be like always informed about what's new on this.
So if you haven't already and you didn't get to add all those different pages, just take a photo, and then after the presentation or anytime in the next couple of days, just come up to one of us and we can help you access those resources.
Exactly.
So these were kind of the overall resources of Relo Andes, and now Gonzalo is going to specifically talk about the resources available here in Bolivia.
So the point is that Relo Andes, as Jennifer explained, it covers like many countries. But in every one of these countries, there's a person like me who's in charge of the country specifically. So the idea in Bolivia is that we have a newsletter. It's an English language teaching newsletter that you can receive via email completely for free. If you don't receive this newsletter via email, all you need to do is like send an email to that address that you see there. And in the body of your email, just say like, "Hi Gonzalo, we were in the Relo Andes presentation at the convention, and we would just like to receive the newsletter." If you don't want to write or type so much, just say like, "Can I please have the newsletter? Newsletter, please." And that would be it. Why would you want to receive this newsletter? Well, because, for instance, we have a very interesting number of people here at the convention, but there are like way many more teachers, English teachers at home, that had no idea that there was such a convention of such quality here in Santa Cruz happening during these 3 days. So how would they know that something like this is happening? Well, actually, like in our newsletter, you can see that we've been publishing this for many, many months during this year. So here we have the invitation for the beta convention so that people could actually be here and have the experience that you're having. You also have ELT news. This is like news about the English language teaching community in Bolivia. Like having this newsletter, you could learn, for example, that the Escuela Normal, that's Escuela Superior de Formación de Maestros in El Alto, met because they wanted to like improve their curricula, and that's something that you can learn that's happening in Bolivia. And then you ask yourself and say like, is the local Normal also doing something similar? And you will learn from what is going on in the country. You can also learn about some English immersion camps, just to give you an example, and you can see here about the Access camps. Access is the English micro-scholarship program that Jennifer referred to minutes ago. And you can learn about the immersion camps that took place in Santa Cruz and Tarija. Also about the ESP, that's English for Specific Purposes, immersion camp that took place in La Paz, organized by the Universidad Pública del Alto, and news like those. So, I mean, we grab newspapers every day, we watch the news, but you know, sometimes those are not like relevant to us. We would like to know, as English teachers, what is going on in the ELT community in our country, and this is a simple way to do it. You can also learn about the English Access Micro-Scholarship Program that Jennifer talked about, and you can learn that this program was recruiting. And I say was because it's already over. The recruitment period is over in Santa Cruz and in Tarija. In the end of this year, we'll have new access cohorts happening in Cochabamba and Sucre. So this might not be for you because you're English teachers, but why not thinking about your students? So instead of having, you know, like the Centro Boliviano Americanos, the CBAs, only working on a smaller circle, you know, like close to them, you could be the means to reach out to other kids, other young people who may want to have this opportunity. It's a all-paid scholarship for 2 years. It's fantastic. The Inglés Yes, for example, it's a program sponsored also by the U.S. Embassy in Bolivia in El Alto. So it just finished recruiting. We were working in partnership with Unifrance in El Alto. So they are managing the program, and we reached out to 160 young people who are now part of the program. So they have like a full program for 2 years in the Metro Parada Juveniles in El Alto. Just for you to know, Metro Parada Juveniles are community centers in El Alto, and they have 18 different ones. So these are small programs, small classes placed all around the city of El Alto. El Alto is huge, so we don't want people to go all across the city to take an English class. So we open a classroom close to their homes. And like this, you see we have like more ELT news. You also learn about other scholarships, and this might be of your interest because the College Horizons Outreach Program, CHOP, I'm not so much of a fan of CHOP. I like to call it College Horizons. It's recruiting people as we speak. This is a program oriented to the African Bolivian or to the African Bolivian descendant. So in this moment, we are looking for participants in La Paz, Cochabamba, Santa Cruz, and Sucre. So if you are an English teacher in any of those cities and you happen to know African Bolivian descendants, African Bolivian people who are interested in learning English, all paid for 2 years at a local BNC, let them know that this is there. You see, as simple as that. Something else that you find in the newsletter is professional development programs. Jennifer mentioned the e-teacher program. This is scholarship, you know, for online courses at an American university. Well, as she mentioned, there are only 16 spaces, 16 slots for the whole region. So this is nothing. So what the American English team has been working on is in producing alternatives. This, for example, it's fantastic for all of those who do not have a lot of time. The American English Live is the new version of the known webinar series. How is this has changed? Number one, everybody already got, not everybody, but most of you got onto the American English for Educators Facebook page. Well, this American English Live sessions are broadcast via Facebook. So you don't need to register, you don't need to do anything. Tomorrow is the first session of this new cycle from 9 to 10 a.m. So if you're here and you have data on your phone, you know, a few megas, just go there, look for American English for Educators from 9 to 10, and you'll be able to participate in the first session. All free. You finish the session, you take a short quiz, only 3 questions, and if you answer 2 of them right, you get a digital badge. What's a digital badge? It's like a certificate. It's a certificate that says that you were part of this session. Now, if you are interested in growing professionally with your colleagues, what you could do is make a team of 4 or more people. So once you have a team, only send an email to me, you know, to the email that you already have, that's like fortuneg@state.gov, and register your team. So what is the difference if you register your team? It's that you will need to be part of the session as a team, all together. What does it mean to be part of the session all together? It means that, number one, since you are registering your team, you will receive material so that you can read about the topic to be presented before the session. Some guidelines for discussion in the pre-watching session, during the session, and after the session. So doing this as a team will help you grow more than if you do it individually, because discussing on the issue being presented will help you go deeper into what you are maybe not learning something completely new. Perhaps it's just reviewing something that you learned once, but you may have not been using lately. What is good about making teams and registering your teams? That in the end of the 6 sessions, so American English Live, it's a total of 6 sessions every other Wednesday. So tomorrow is the first session, and in 2 weeks, we have session number 2. So you see, it's very light time-wise. So when you attended 4 of 6 sessions, you can receive a certificate. A certificate that says that you were part of the American English Live training for a total of 40 academic hours. So you know how important certificates are in our country. This is why many people decide not to do this individually, but to actually do it as a team. And if you do it as a team, again, you can earn a physical certificate in the end. So there's still time. If you are interested in making a team with your colleagues from your institution or friends from your city, it just needs to be people that are able to get physically together and watch and be part of this seminar at the same time. Tomorrow, from 9 to 10, I will be out there like being part of the webinar. So if you've never seen what this is like, just come by. I will be right out there. So you can have a taste of it, and maybe you want to join later. Something else that's also interesting is what Jennifer mentioned. The e-teacher program is very restricted because only for 16 people in the whole region. But the MOOCs are open. If you've never heard about a MOOC, MOOC. It's an acronym that stands for Massive Open Online Course. It's massive because you have thousands of people participating. It's online. It's completely asynchronous. It means that you don't need to be online at a specific time. You can do it on your own time, at home, during your breaks, when you're riding the bus on your cell phone. You don't need anything else except internet connection. The next MOOC will actually start on February the 11th. And it's going to be on content-based instruction, CBI. So if you are interested in CBI, all you need to do is register to this MOOC. You see? So if you don't know how to do it, approach me or Jennifer today or tomorrow, or send me an email, and I can send you like detailed instructions or where exactly to go. But if you receive the newsletter, you have the link there. So all you'll need to do is like double click on it. Okay? Then, MOOCs are not only for English teachers. American English team is actually also thinking about students of English. These MOOCs are not for beginners. You already need to have at least a B1 level if you want to join these courses. But the topics are impressively interesting. It's English for media literacy, English for STEM fields, STEM. Does anybody know what STEM stands for? Science, technology, engineering, and math. Then you have English for business and entrepreneurship, English for journalism, English for career development. And although this is actually devoted, to English learners, as English teachers, we can also be part of this. So if you're an English teacher, perhaps you're also interested in developing knowledge in these specific areas. But something else that you should be interested in is the material. Because all of this material, it's also copyleft. It means that you can download this material and use it for your specific classes. So, for all of those that do not teach at a school, but teach at university level, and I don't mean at a language school, but I mean at a regular school like the engineering school, the law school, etc., and you are teaching English, that's English for specific purposes, you actually should be interested in having this kind of material and developing knowledge in those specific areas. So, all of these are offered via Coursera. So Coursera is the platform that we use. So, all you need to do is check your phones, go into Google or any other browser, type in www.coursera.org, and then look for any of those. Once you get them, just click on it and enroll the course. As simple as that. But that's not it. And this is our jewel now. Is Jose Luis Polo in the audience? No, Jose Luis is not here now, but he's presenting in this convention. I mention his name because I know that he is in the convention, and I know that he applied to this scholarship. He got it. He traveled to the US for 6 weeks because this is a program oriented to secondary school English teachers under 45 years old. So yes, there is an age restriction. But this is oriented to all of those English teachers of secondary school level that are interested in this. Can I see some hands? Is anybody interested in a 6-week program in the United States? Are you teaching at secondary school level? If you are, keep your hands up. Are you under 45? Okay, some hands came low, but that's okay. So for the ones that are still up, all you need to do is contact your local beta representative. Isela here in Santa Cruz, Pochita in Cochabamba, Edith in Sucre, Blanquita in Tarija. You see? Victor in La Paz, I see Victor in the back. All you need to do is contact them and let them know that you're interested in this program. In a few weeks from now, we will be contacting beta representatives and say, hey, the invitation is open. Who in your communities are interested? You see? And as soon as we know, they will say, hey, I have 3 people, I have 4 people. So they'll start working with you to see if you fulfill all the requirements. What do you need? It's not just being a school teacher and being under 45 years old, but you need to at least reach 70 points on the TOEFL IBT. So don't go and take the TOEFL IBT because it's way too expensive, you know? I don't want you to spend $170 just to see how good your English is. So you may approach any institution in your community, like a CBA or, Udabol also, any English teaching institution that can provide you a certification that says that your English is at this level. So at that moment, you can actually apply for the scholarship. During the selection process, if you are selected, we from the embassy will ask you to take the TOEFL and we will pay for the test. So you don't need to take the test now. You will do that later. You will also need to have at least 5 years of experience teaching. And of course, that you need to be a licensed teacher. This is, you need to be graduated from a university or a normal school. If you fulfill with all of those requirements, hey, you could be one of them. You could easily be one of them.
Okay, I think my mic got cut off. But I'm
Micrófono.
going to talk really loud.
El otro micrófono.
So we're going to play a game now to test your understanding of everything that was discussed about the resources that Relo Andes and the U.S. Embassy in Bolivia provide. So what we're going to ask for you to do is to take out your cell phones. You don't have to download the app, but just go to the website kahoot.it. So again, I'm going to walk around, and Gonzalo will walk around and will help. But if you don't know it, it's a really fun tool that you can use with your students to check for understanding. You can use it as a survey or in a competition. In this case, we're going to use it as a competition because the top 3 people are going to win some prizes provided by Relo Andes. So again, we're going to ask that you go, take your cell phones out, type in kahoot.it, and as soon as the screen switches, you're going to see a code that you're going to type in. It's a number code. ¿Está abierto? ¿Todo está listo? Todavía no ha cambiado. ¿Está abierto en la computadora? Mira, está abierto. Todo está ahí. Como lo quiero en mi computadora está ahí. No, está ahí. Está ahí. Estoy diciendo, está ahí la página que quiero. Okay, so there's the code. Hopefully you had a chance to go to the website. If not, you can see it's up there still, kahoot.it. Unfortunately, the sound isn't working, so normally there's fun music that goes with it. We can see 2 people have now, 6 years are so fast. So again, the code is there. That's the first thing that it will ask you for. The second thing it will ask you for is a nickname. So you can just put your first name or maybe something fun or silly.
That's very nice. Do you see how many people participating?
Yeah, great. Maybe when we get to 100, we'll start. Again, raise your hand if you need some help or ask someone around you who is logged in. Perfect. Okay, got it. Yeah, when you have it, then you hit OK, go. And again, this is a free tool you can use with your students. Normally, there's fun music that go along with it.
Do you see how many players we have? 105. That's nice.
So let's start with some of the prizes.
Yeah, once they, at the end, we'll see. Okay, we're going to start in about 10 seconds. So if you aren't able to add your name by the time that we start, you can still join. Just ask the person next to you for the code, because that's going to disappear in a moment. But you can still join even when we start. Okay, so let's do a 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So we're going to start with the first question. Again, you can still add even if you haven't yet during the game.
So don't forget, you need to be quick.
So you'll see how it goes with the first question is what is a responsibility of Relo Andes? So notice there's different options here, right? There's the red box with the triangle that says advise governments. There's the blue box with the diamond that says participate in teacher training conferences. There's the yellow box with the circle that says consult universities and BNCs. And there's the green box with the square that says all of the above. So on your screen, select the color and the shape of what you think is the correct answer. Uh-oh, some of us didn't read all the options, and the majority, as you can see, selected participate in teacher training conferences, but the correct answer should have been all of the above. So be careful, there's some tricky ones on here. And when you click next, we're going to see who's in the top 5. So where's Gabby, who's number 1? Wow, right there, excellent. Number 2, Gis, okay. Number 3, Glenda Peru. Okay, oh, right in the front row, we've got 2 in the top 3. And then Ivania is back there. And then number 5, Layla.
Oh, there you go. It's Lila.
There we go. Okay, Lila, excellent. So that was our first question. Question number 2, what is not a country in Relo Andes? Remember, Relo Andes has 7 countries. Which one is not one of those 7? Bolivia, Peru, Panama, or Ecuador? Which one is not part of the 7 countries of Relo Andes? We got 10 more seconds.
That's 153 answers.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay, good. Give yourselves an applause. This time we got the majority correct. 107 people got this correct. Panama has its own Relo, its own region. And who's in the top 5? Oh, so we got some new names on there. Elvis is new.
Elvis, can you raise your hand?
All right, excellent.
There you
All
go.
the
You have
way.
Elvis in
Great.
the back.
Number 4. All right,
Who's
up there in
mine?
front. And Millie, number 5. Okay,
Millie.
great. All different places in the audience. All right, number 3. What is the micro scholarship program for youth called? Is it called Xxiv 2.0, Access, Accelerate, or e-learner? What is the micro scholarship program for youth called? 10 more seconds. Ooh. So both Gonzalo and I talked about this. It's called the Access Program. It's in those 7 countries. It's in actually 100 countries around the world and here in Bolivia. It's a great opportunity for youth between the ages of 13 and 20 to study at the binational centers, 2 years for free. So, we lost some people. Who's still in the top 5? Let's see.
Oh, Gabby remains on the top.
It's holding strong, number 1. We've got some new ones now in number 3, 4, and 5. So again, you can imagine how great this is to use with your students. It's a great check for comprehension. Gonzalo and I learned there's some things that we should go over that maybe not all of us got. Okay, question number 4. What is not part of the e-teacher program? So look at the name, e-teacher, and think about what is not part of this specific program. Exchanges abroad, the MOOCs or massive open online courses, webinars and distant learning opportunities, or possible scholarships. So think about the specific e-teacher program. This is the one that only had 16 spaces available. Excellent, this one we got majority correct. Exchanges abroad are part of other programs that the USC offers, but not the e-teacher program. Oh, no one moved on this one. The top 5 remain the same. All right, we have 3 more questions. This is question number 5. And the question is, what is the Fulbright TEA program? Is it a 6-week program at a US university? Is it an opportunity to learn new methodologies and strategies? Is it a program for retired elementary school teachers? Or are both A and B correct? 5 more seconds. Oh, almost got the majority correct. Maybe some of us looked at the first answer and said, that's right. But then we didn't read on and see that, oh, B is correct as well. Why isn't C correct? Because remember, there's an age limit for this program. 45 years old is the cutoff, and it's for secondary teachers, not primary teachers. So, did our top 5 change or remain the same? The same. Uh-oh. Well, there's still 2 questions left. It's anybody's game. Question number 6 is, what is not a place to find Relo Andy's resources? So remember, we took about 5 minutes to bookmark pages, to like certain pages. Which one was not part of our Relo Andy's social media package? Was it the website, americanenglish.state.gov? Was it a YouTube channel, a Facebook page, or Snapchat? What is
Check the
not
question
yet?
very carefully. It says, what is not?
Not.
What is not?
Oh,
a
and we
place?
got that one very well. So give yourselves a hand.
Good.
Majority correct by far. Very good, very good. Did our top 5 change? Yes, we have somebody new there in number 3. Where are you?
Stefano Momo, can you raise your hand?
Okay, excellent.
go.
Good job. So you made a comeback. It says 12 players just hit an answer streak of getting 3 in a row correct. So I think we're on our last question now. Are you ready? Here is question number 7 of 7. What is a resource teachers can find on the americanenglish.state.gov website? The first, downloadable books and materials. In blue, an archive of webinars. In yellow, a video game, or in green, all of the above. What is a resource teachers can find on the americanenglish.state.gov website? 2 more seconds. Okay, excellent. We ended on a great note with the majority reading carefully and getting all of the above correct. So let's do a drum roll, and we're going to see the top 3. So go ahead, make some noise. Make some noise. There we go. More noise. And the top 3 are, in first place, wow, Stefano came back to get number 1. Lila in second place. And Gabby was still in the top 3. So come on up, and we've got prizes for you. Let's give them a hand. Do we have 2 more prizes, too?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. And, 4. Uh-oh. What about the bag?
5.
5? Okay. So we've got good news. T and
Stefano?
S and T can also come up. We have 2 more prizes for 4th and 5th place. So come on up, players
So
T
the
and
first
S
and second
and
prize,
S and
it's a
T.
set of the Activate board games. So ask Stefano Momo how he likes them, and we'll see. So Laila also gets to have another set, and a very nice 2019 calendar for you. Okay? So
Thank you.
congratulations,
Let's give them a
and thank
hand.
you. So can we have TNS? TNS and S and T. Who is TNS? Oh, TNS. Tabitha and Samuel. And who is S and T? Okay. Yes.
Sorry, I don't know if I was listening.
Okay. So we also have extra calendars as prizes for TNS.
Yeah, I see some people leaving, but we want to show the email addresses one more time. So if you
and
didn't get
S&T.
it,
Congratulations.
stick around for 1 second. And I'm just going to show our email addresses so that you can take a photo. There we go. So remember, any questions about the eTeacher program or any of to get the newsletter, you can email reloandes@state.gov. If you're based in Bolivia, there's Gonzalo's email. So thank you so much. Thank you for your attention. But I'll put it back on that in case you want to take an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this helpful and interesting presentation. Now, for the ones who want to attend to different workshops, you can go and look for your class. If the class you choose is full, you can come back here because we have 2 interesting plenaries for you, and at the same time, the workshops are ready for you. Remember, attendance must be taken at the end of the next 2 plenaries, in case you want to go to the workshops. Thank you so much for your attention. Now it's time to continue with the plenaries. In this opportunity, you are going to listen to Professor Gonzalo Fortun, who is going to talk about the universal design teaching English for special needs. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start with this new presentation, but can I ask everybody to get a little bit closer, like especially to the ones that are in the back? Let's try to get a little closer, because even though this is a mini plenary, I don't want it to be a plenary in which I'm talking here in front of you and you're not doing anything, okay? So I want this to be like more interactive. So I definitely invite everybody in the back to come a little closer. Don't be afraid, I don't bite too strongly. Okay? Now, thank you very much for being here. And I really congratulate the organizers of this 24th convention, because I think that everybody who's here is very happy about all the presentations, workshops, plenaries, the food, so on and so forth. Now, as you can see, today's presentation is devoted to the universal design, teaching English for special needs. We're going to be reviewing some core concepts that are important so that we understand what exactly is that we're talking about, the implications of all these concepts. We're going to make this very personal, so it's actually relevant, and when you leave this mini plenary, you can actually feel that you can do something with what you got, and most definitely have some material that you can go to your class tomorrow, well, not tomorrow because many are on vacation, but like on the 1st of February and start using it. All right? So we're on. Number one, something that we need to understand is how important English language teaching methodology is. And I don't mean, for professionals to come up front and tell how much they know about English language teaching methodology. Methods have evolved from the grammar translation method, that was like widely criticized by many and very loved by many too back in the day, all the way up to like all new approaches, methods, and strategies that are being presented. All of them are important. I'm personally very inclined to eclecticism. I believe that methods, approaches, strategies are very important. But I also believe that you have to believe in yourself and in the capability you have to teach English. You're working with students, and students are people that are individuals. Each one is a different person. So if you as a teacher and your teaching is not centered in your students, I think that would actually be the first mistake that you're making. Because you're not being paid to tell how much you know. You're actually being paid to facilitate learning happening in your students. The idea of understanding that learning disabilities, once detected, evolve into special need. Once you know what the disability is, it actually becomes a specific need. And to understand that when you're talking about specific needs, you're not only talking about pathological cases as disorders or illnesses, but you're actually talking about individuals. That each one of us as a learner is a different person. That everybody learns in a different way. That you as a teacher, you were a learner, you are still a learner, and as a good teacher, you will never stop being a learner. Because when you think about you as teachers, you have to think about an electrocardiogram, you know, when you're all wired up and you see the graphic. What happens when you see a straight line? You're dead. And that's something that you have to really understand. Your life, your professional life, your personal life has to have ups and downs. You need to have all these peaks and valleys, because otherwise it means that you are dead. Every time you try something new, it might not always be a peak. Not every time that you try something new, it works. And that's actually something good. Because when something doesn't work, we humans are wired up not to give up at the first try. We should always try a second time. But not just to do exactly the same thing, you know? Like Edward de Bono, 1998, said, if you're digging a hole and you're not finding what you're looking for, don't dig the hole deeper. Dig it on a different place. So the idea of trying, it doesn't mean to do exactly the same thing over and over and over until it works. But it means reflecting on what you have done and doing it slightly different. If it doesn't work, do it differently again. If it doesn't still work, do it in a completely different way until it actually works. But always reflecting on what you are doing, because you need to know what you are doing, because when it works, you want to know what you did that worked. And that is what we call a best practice. And you teachers should be registering all these best practices. Because when we read books from many researchers, we might actually be reading a person who's never actually taught, but who's done research on something, but has not actually been in a classroom. But when you read research done by someone who actually was in a classroom, it has a lot more validity to your work. I was very curious, and this happened good 6 months ago. And I went into, INE, that's the Instituto Nacional de Estadísticas in Bolivia, and I was looking for some figures that would reflect, or would show a situation of special education in our country. And I was like so surprised to find this. All I did was translate the original chart. You can see those figures. And I don't know how surprised you are, but I was very surprised. Like to see, for example, that 18% of the students in our country might actually have some sort of learning difficulty, that 23.5% might have some sort of auditive handicap. They talk about visual handicap, mental handicap, physical handicap, multiple handicap, and superior talent as in 0. I don't know exactly if this is reflecting Bolivian situation. I might give the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think that this could actually be.
Why so many more women than men?
I have no idea. This is actually coming out of the Instituto Nacional de Estadísticas, and it's very surprising.
We would need to know how they are describing it.
Oh yes, precisely. Because if you just read what we can read there as in learning difficulty, but like what exactly is that we're talking about? I mean, when they say like mental handicap, like to me it's like way too general. Now in the plenary this morning, talking about neuroscience, there was a question that said like, where can we teachers, become more knowledgeable about neuroscience? And I think that it's fantastic when teachers are interested in like learning more, because that's what a good teacher should always be doing. But the truth is, what should we do in our classrooms? How should we deal with all of these difficulties? Because we are not experts in the area. We cannot actually diagnose any of these situations that you face in your classrooms. Some years ago, there was a very interesting trend in architecture. This is a trend in architecture. They came up with an idea that they called the universal design. And they were thinking about people. They were thinking about people, and they were thinking about schools, they were thinking about bus stations, train stations, they were thinking about hospitals, they were thinking about banks and how they are designed, and they were already aware of people having difficulties in some cases. They were started thinking, for example, do we have any left-handed people here in the audience? So I don't know you left-handed if you ever had difficulty using scissors. Because scissors are not designed for left-handed. General scissors are designed for right-handed. So when you grab scissors with your right hand, you will see that the two blades get closer together. But when you grab them with your left hand, there's a gap between them. So many left-handed trying to use scissors, regular scissors, they don't get to cut paper with them. Left-handed people generally have problems writing with a pen, like a ballpoint pen. Because a ballpoint pen is designed for right-handed. Because when you're writing with a ball paint, you're like sliding the pen on top of the paper. So when you slide, the ball on the tip rolls and takes the ink that's inside the pen right on top of the paper surface. But if you are left-handed, you're not sliding. You're actually sort of like carving into the page. So it's more difficult for the ball to roll and leave the ink on the paper. So who could have thought about these little things? If you think about door handles, like if you have a pair of doors, like doors generally open this way. So if you're a right-handed person, you turn the knob or the handle and you can push the door. But if you are left-handed, you might actually hit the frame with your hand when you're trying to open the door. Because when whoever is designing doors, it's actually not thinking about left-handed persons. They are thinking about right-handed people. So you see, these architects started thinking about issues that nobody else think about. Things that are like nonsense or are like meaningless to many others, and they started thinking about these 7 core concepts. They talked about equity in the use. They said, like, if we are building a room, this should be for everybody. No matter if you're tall, if you're short, if you're right-handed, if you're left-handed, if you're slim, if you're big, it should be for everyone. If you use a wheelchair or if you walk on crutches, that's what they are thinking about it. They talk about flexibility in use, as in scissors should be used by right-handed people or left-handed people equally. They should be equally useful for both. They were talking about simple and intuitive use. Apple Corporation has been on the lead of simple and intuitive use for years. Huawei is growing in popularity now because if you are users of any of those 2 cellular phones, you will find out that if you ever have an iPhone, it's so easy to learn how to use. It's so intuitive. You don't really need to do research or to experiment so much. It's right there. It's so easy to use. Perceptible information. I mean, you shouldn't be like trying to find out how to use something. It should be simple. Tolerance for error. If you make a mistake, it shouldn't be catastrophic. Low physical effort, size and space for approach and use. You know, here you have like architects thinking about all of this. But what happens? There are educators who are actually taking all these concepts from the architectural environment and taking them to your classroom. So as you can see here, for example, what they are doing is taking all of those 7 concepts that you saw before, and they are putting them in practice in the educational environment. It's exactly the same thing that you saw, except that this is recontextualized in an educational environment. 3 basic principles. And this is like very simple for everybody to catch. Multiple means of representation. I mean, try to understand this from your own teaching practice. Reflect on it. Multiple means of representation. Are you going to come to your class and only talk? Do you think that if I were only talking, I would be having exactly the same effect as me talking and you looking at the graph? Not exactly. Multiple means of action and expression. Some of you were talking, some others were like nodding, others were like raising hands. If I played Kahoot at this time, maybe more people would be interacting with me because people react in different ways. Everybody has had the student who's sitting in the back, seemingly not paying attention to you, but when you give the quiz, he's the person that got the highest score. And you thought that he was not paying attention to you. How could that happen? So in the past, teachers used to label people, label students like that fast learner, that slow learner, etc., etc. Now we just understand that people are different and that they act differently, they think differently, they act differently. Multiple means of engagement. If you're teaching young learners, you know that you cannot plan an activity that lasts for half an hour with a young learner. You need to change activities every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes, otherwise they get bored. So if you're teaching teenagers, you know that the way in which you can engage them is totally different. You cannot treat them as young learners because that would be the biggest mistake on earth. But you cannot treat them as adults because they are not adults yet. I mean, this sandwich generation is very interesting. So what happens? When you take this universal design into the educational concept, you're actually thinking about universal design of the physical space, as in nowadays, classrooms are not anymore 4 empty walls. There's so much that your students can get from their peripheral learning. Like empty walls say nothing. But it's not just about covering your walls on posters of any kind. They need to serve a purpose. You're talking about universal design on information technology. Today, Jennifer and I introduced, maybe new for some, not so new for others, Kahoot. It takes very little data consumption. In the language used in Bolivia, muy pocos megas. You don't really need to have a lot of megas in order to use Kahoot in your class. The output and displays, input and controls, manipulation, safety, universal design of instruction. Many years ago, this is 1983, this person here came up with a very interesting idea on a book that was called Frame of Minds, Marcos de la Mente. This man here, almost for the first time, started thinking about individual differences. Howard Gardner, a neuropsychologist, started thinking and studying individuals. He started studying musicians, artists, and sport players. And he started thinking about them because in many of these cases, take the example of a sports player, It's difficult to think and imagine as a great baseball player or a great basketball player and to label him under a very intelligent person. Some people just can't understand how, sports and intelligence could actually be related. Or a musician and comparing him with a mathematician. So for many, it would actually be like really easy, like who's more intelligent, an engineer or a soccer player? Who's more intelligent, an engineer or a soccer player? So it would be so easy to go and apply an IQ test. Perhaps the one created in 1920 by Binet that would definitely measure, some parts of what being intelligent means. Maybe how logical you are, how much you remember, because that is what was taken into account in these IQ tests. So what he started thinking was, your brain, as we discussed this morning, your brain is like marvelous, like our brain, the human brain is marvelous. I loved the representation of that electrical human brain this morning because it really shows how magic this is. Like in this moment, there's an English saying that says like, oh, I see those wheels spinning. Because that's exactly what's happening in our brains in this moment. Like you're processing such a huge amount of information and it's happening all over your brain. And the more exposed you are like to different situations and circumstances, that neuroplasticity discussed this morning, the idea of new synapses, like new connections being created, it actually makes your brain, be more and more and more active. When you think about Howard Gardner, we generally relate him to the multiple intelligences. I loved his last book called 5 Minds of the Future, in which he not only talks about the multiple intelligences, these ones that you represent here, plus the one that Goldman introduced as emotional intelligence. And in 5 Minds of the Future, what you have is, how is that we get all of them together, and how is that they relate to one another in order to really perform effectively different tasks, which is what happens on an everyday basis. When he presented these intelligences plus the emotional intelligence, he said something that for some odd reason very few people take into account. And that's not me saying, but it's he himself in TESOL Conference 2011 in Boston when presenting the 5 Minds of the Future. Gardner said, when I introduced the multiple intelligences, I explicitly said, don't label people under either of them. Because that's not true. It's not that you are one or the other. It's that everybody has the potential to have all of these areas of your intelligence developed to a certain extent. Do you know what your multiple intelligence profile is? I would invite you, not right now, but take a picture of this slide. And let's talk about this tomorrow. I want you to take that inventory. You don't need to show this to anybody. This is for you. And when you go home, ask your husband or wife, partner in life, to do this too. And then start talking about it. Can I go to the next slide? Look at this. When you go onto the internet site that you saw, you will see something like this, like what you see up here on the upper left corner. This is for one of the intelligences, the verbal linguistic intelligence. You will have a set of questions. All you need to do is tick. Tick which ones you think that apply to you. And then write the number. You will do this for all of those 7 intelligences there. So what you will have in the end is what you see here on the upper right corner. You will have numbers. Numbers for each one of these intelligences. Once you have those numbers, I don't know how computer savvy you are, but this is very simple. If you use an Excel sheet to do that, all you need to do is like make a block with that information and go into charts, if you're using Excel, and click on this icon. When you click on this icon, what you will immediately have is something like this. Like Excel will do the work for you. What you will have is your multiple intelligence profile. That is actually nobody's. It's just showing someone's multiple intelligence profile. So what does this mean? And check that now I switched from student-centered into, hey, teachers, think about yourselves. Think about your multiple intelligence profile for a reason. Look at this person. We don't know who this person is. What intelligence does he or she has the most developed? The second, logical and intrapersonal. Interesting. Then we have a kinesthetic. What about the lowest? Interpersonal and logical. When you do this and you see your profile, then you start reflecting and reflect on your own teaching practice. Maybe this can explain, like in case of this person, why is that this person uses orality so much? Why is that this person explains orally so much? Look at what happens here with spatial. Do you see where you are in spatial? So spatial intelligence, it's more that visual intelligence. So this explains, for instance, and this will happen to you if you are on a similar profile, why is that you as a teacher tend to talk so much and not rely so much on graphics, drawings. But if you actually rely a lot on graphics, flashcards, posters, probably you'll realize that your visual spatial intelligence is like highly developed. If you're the kind of person that uses music, that plays with songs or like plays videos in your class, perhaps you realize that your musical intelligence is like higher than you were thinking or expecting. So once you see this, you will start knowing yourself as a teacher and knowing your learning style, because your learning style will be closely related to your teaching style. And when you realize this, no wonder after you give a lesson, some of your students understand more than others. Now you may understand why is that you do some things and you don't do others in your class. So the implication is your teaching style, it's very related to your learning style. But if you don't know this, it's kind of difficult for you to improve your teaching. Because you do want to reach to all of your students. And each one of your students has a different learning profile. I disagree with the idea that if you are a visual learner, we should only reinforce that kind of learning. I think that everybody should be exposed to all different inputs, and the multisensorial input strategy, for example, talks about that precisely, that you should be using, multiple means in your classroom so that the different learning styles that your students have can actually be empowered. Multiple intelligences, it's very closely related to what we're talking about, the universal design in education. Because the idea of multisensorial, multiple ways of exposure, multiple ways of action, allowing all of this to happen is exactly what you want to happen in your classes. I want you to think, take a few seconds, and I want you to start thinking about you as a learner. And what I'm doing now is trying to sponsor a metacognitive activity, because I'm asking you to think about how you memorize, for instance. If I give you a poem, a 10-line poem, how do you memorize a 10-line poem? How do you memorize a 10-line poem? What do you do? You have the poem on a piece of paper, what do you do? So let me see if I understand. Like you try to personalize that information? Okay, okay. So you try to set yourself in that situation, and that helps you memorize. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. How do you memorize a 10-line poem? What do you do? What do you do, Ingrid? Sorry? Okay, so you read it again and again and again and again until you remember the whole thing. Anybody else? Thank you.
I break it down into 3 or 4 parts.
Interesting. So you write down, like you read the poem, then you write it down, and you read it again and again, or you break it down in pieces. Thank you. So you break it down in pieces. Anybody else does anything differently?
I try to learn by using mnemonics.
Okay, so you use a memorization technique?
Yeah,
Okay, so a mnemonic takes it like, if you're trying to memorize, like say like a 10-line, you might actually want to take the first letters from each one of the lines and you make up a word or something. Like that's how I memorized the periodic table of elements, like Li Bebukunov, and those are like the initials of each one of the first elements of each line. And then like the Li starts from like lithium, beryllium, calcium, magnesium, strontium, zinc. And then I can remember each one of them by just remembering the first one. It makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So you see, the point is this. Some people learn easily if they listen to it. Others might actually add rhythm. You know? Like, how do you learn the alphabet? Some people repeat it 1,000 times until they memorize it. Others sang it. You know the ABC song. That works for some, but not for everybody. And it's just because everybody learns in a different way. Let's not talk about pathological cases only, but let's talk about individuals understanding and learning in different ways. Like in each one of your classes, you have different learning abilities, just because people are different. So when you think about the multiple intelligences and the universal design in education, that's what you have to do. You have to think about multiplicity of ways. But you know, the only way to do that actually is like, number one, you need to know yourselves as teachers. And how do you do that? You need to discover how you are as a learner. And believe that that has a very close relationship with what you do as a teacher. And then you start learning from your learners. Not asking them how is that they learn better. because sometimes it's difficult to promote this self-reflection, especially if you're working with young learners. And you just cannot accept labels in general, as in young learners learn like this. Because if you have like 20 people in your class, you may actually find a lot of differences among those 20 students. And you're not going to teach in 20 different ways, but you're just going to try to expose them in as many different ways as you can. So instead of just like explaining the lesson, you should try maybe recording a video, sending the video via WhatsApp so they can see the video as many times as they can. And they're not just like listening, but they are also like looking at you, and they can zoom in and they can like see everything closer. And who knows, that might actually work. So you're talking about like universal design in education, as in trying out different approaches, thinking about the different methods that you're using. All of you have gone to language school to become English teachers, and you've learned about all this theory. But you know, theory that it's not being like grounded, it's lost. And you went to school for a reason, and everything that you studied needs to be refreshed. Like take it back, you know, like restudy, relearn what you did in the past, and try to put it in practice. Like everything that you did is and will be useful in what you do. Think about the different procedures that you have in class. Not only think about you as a teacher being in front of your class and like talking about your lesson. Think about like every little different strategy that you have been learning during this conference. I've seen like workshops on group work, on use of technology, on this and that. So this is why you come to these conventions, because you want to see everything that the people are doing in the world, and you want to take part of it and apply it. Like, don't let these ideas go down to waste. Like, get all of these handouts, get some emails from the different speakers, get in touch with them, because when you are part of a workshop, you probably remember, I don't know, did you see what happened with the Kahoot questions today? Like, there were some important details that many people missed. It could be that they were not paying attention, or it could be that they were distracted at that time, or just that they joined our session towards the last part of it because of the prizes. Who knows? It doesn't really matter. The point now is that if you have questions, you should approach all of those speakers. I mean, we're all here for 3 days. This is almost like a camp. And if it's raining, nobody's going to leave the venue. So approach people. Like, if anybody comes to me with questions, I will never say, no, I don't have the time. This is what we are here for. And then the material. You've seen there in the exhibition hall, we have like good 8 or 9 publishing companies. If you're working with a set of books, it doesn't mean that you cannot approach another publishing company and see what they have. Because if there's a must for a teacher in any area, and more if you're teaching English, is go beyond the book. It's like the book is a guide. It's a fantastic guide. But you need to bring in to your class more material to make your class be more engaging to your students. If you're talking about like multiple sensorial strategies to have multiple input, what you need to do is explore more. I mean, Google is fantastic, but it shows you a universe of information. Jennifer and I invited you to visit the americanenglish.state.gov site, where you have information about English language teaching and learning. So it's more concentrated on what you want to do. If you go and you look on YouTube, you know, you can find like anything and everything. But if you go into the American English on YouTube, you'll find the material that we showed you today that might actually be more helpful because it's specifically designed for what you're doing. The Voice of America, for example, has also produced fantastic material. Anybody who's gone into the Facebook for Educators today, the American English for Educators site, should have seen the lessons that the Voice of America has now for English learners, from like very basic levels. So all of that material, it's right there, and it's there for you for free. And that is what is going to provide you with more. Here, for example, we have some lesson plans that I'm going to share with you. All of these lesson plans have been designed under the Universal Design for Education. And I've seen a lot of people taking pictures, and what I will give you is a link so that you can access the complete presentation and download it so that you can see this in detail later on. So, do you see that link at the bottom? That's all you need. If you go there, you'll find a copy of the complete slideshow so that you can have it, and also my email address so that you can contact me anytime if you have any questions. So I just need to thank you for being here today, and I hope that you enjoyed this short mini plenary. And please don't hesitate in asking any question you have anytime. So thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any question that I can entertain now? Okay, so then we are free to go. Thank you. Do you have a question? No? Great.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gonzalo, for sharing with us two interesting presentations. Now we are going to have a presentation by Professor Holly Hansen Thomas. She's a professor and program coordinator for ESL and bilingual education, Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas. A two-time Fulbright scholar and successful grant writer manager of approximately $7 million in federal funding. Dr. Hansen Thomas has engaged in teacher training and research for content area teachers for ELLs in the US, Europe, and Central America for over 2 decades. Please give her a big round of applause.
I'm going to read this for you. Do what you want.
Thank you.
Here or no?
If you want,
I don't
can
know where
put
else.
it at the
Okay.
box.
Okay. Is that okay? Yeah. ¿Está bien? Easy. Okay. ¿Y funciona? ¿O no está puesta? ¿Sí?
Sí, pero vamos a ver
¿Sí? Ya. Okay.
No sé si da mucho, ¿no?
No.
Ya,
Este.
está encendido. Ahorita le vamos a poner su objetivo.
Tengo videos y espero que funcionen, ¿eh?
Claro, solamente para gameplay.
Ya. Okay, pero ¿y yo o ellos? Él.
Si acaso aquí no da, nosotros le damos
Okay.
play.
Yeah. But don't you think it's better that I start? I'll give it a few minutes.